The People's Party or Populist Party was formed throughout the late 1880s and early 1890s. The official party was formed in Omaha, Nebraska in 1892. The People's Party was made up of mostly farmers and working class men who were having trouble making it in a time of economic downturn, as well as in a time when farming became difficult due to land overuse and drought. Although there should have been a prosperous time for the farmers, with many of the innovations of farming tools and transportation, it was not. Many had taken out loans to expand their farms and to buy new farming equipment and were failing to pay back their loans since they had bought land that was unfit for crops. New farming equipment should have made their harvest larger and brought in more profit, but crop prices took a nosedive, causing many to lose their farms or to struggle to make it. Most farmers during this period believed that the greenback system would benefit their interests, and out of this, the farmers gave their support to the short-lived Greenback Party, which formed in 1876. The party had attracted few, but just 2 years later, they had 1 million voters and sent 14 men to Congress, one being James B. Weaver, future presidential candidate for the People's Party. After those 14 men's terms were up, the party faded and was dissolved. The farmers' problems still continued, though, and by the 1880s, a drought had ravaged the wheat crops of the plains. Cotton prices had nosedived to a new all-time low, and because of this, the National Farmers Alliance and Industrial Union was formed, which promised unified action to solve agricultural problems. The alliance, after its formation, had an explosion of membership. At one point, 1,000 men per week were joining. There were two of these alliances. One was the National Farm Alliance, which was located on the plains west of the Mississippi, and it was known as the Northwestern Alliance. The industrial-based alliance was to the south, and was called the Southern Farm Alliance. It was started up in 1875, but made no real contributions until Dr. Charles W. McCune, who was a far-sighted person, took the reins of this alliance and began rapidly expanding the alliance, absorbing smaller alliances. By 1890, it had over 1 million members. The alliance welcomed farmers, doctors, teachers, preachers, and mechanics, but did not allow lawyers, bankers, or cotton merchants, or warehouse operators. The Southern Alliance was so good at reaching people that it had spoke to and lectured to about 2 million farm families in 43 states and territories. The party's forward thinking led to the establishment of cooperative grain elevators, marketing associations, and retail stores. These were put in place to bring farmers together and increase their profits. This was short-lived, though, and in June of 1890, the Kansas Alliance formed the first major People's Party. The Southern Alliance, however, opposed this idea because they feared it would divide the white vote and undercut white supremacy in the South. Also in 1890, female populist Mary E. Lease made 160 speeches calling on farmers to raise up against Wall Street and the industrial East. Furthermore, during that same summer, People's Party met in Ocala, Florida, and adopted the Ocala Demands, which put forth the platform that the Populists ran on. Demands called for free coinage of silver, abolition on national banks, a sub-treasury system, a graduated tax and expanded money supply, government ownership of transportation and communication lines, direct election of senators instead of them being elected by state legislatures, term limits for presidents and vice presidents, reparation of land owned by foreigners, civil service reform, an 8-hour workday, postal banks, pensions for ex-Union soldiers, and revision of the law of contracts, and finally immigration reforms. It's a pretty lengthy list of demands that many saw as radical, and it made people uneasy. The People's Party was very open-minded and forward-thinking political party for the time. They accepted women and African American and viewed them as equals, and in one instance helped out African Americans. Tom Watson and 2 other white farmers protected an African American who was threatened of being lynched. Also, most white Southern populists saw the African Americans as they were having just as much trouble and they were both in the same ditch. Moving forward, though, In 1892, the People's Party saw no reason to continue cooperating with Democrats, since the Democrats only exploited them for votes and never adopted any of their reforms. So in 1892, they ran their first presidential campaign, running James B. Weaver as their first candidate. Weaver had won 1,027,329 votes and 22 electoral votes. The party that year had elected governors in Kansas and North Dakota. They also elected 10 congressmen, 5 senators, and 1,500 state legislature members. Weaver lost, though, because he failed to appeal to the major farming sectors of the United States. 1892 was the year for the People's Party. They reached their peak membership and approval that year. But later that year, Farm Alliance memberships had dropped, and so did People's Party memberships. Their numbers dwindled down, and it was now finished. The alliance and the party was considered one of the most powerful protests in American history. But the People's Party had been dissolved, and the third party once again had failed to capture the votes of the American people. Better than us, huh? Well, we're gonna show them.